everybody, my name is Joanna, I'm the Polish folk witch, and today I am coming to you to talk about books. You know, it's the 1st of September as of the moment that I'm recording this, and to me September is always this month of nerdiness, books, learning, starting new study projects and such. It's always felt like this for me. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I'm a Virgo moon and something just, launches in my brain as soon as September 1st starts. It's also probably related to the fact that in Poland, we start the new school year on the 1st of September always. So, this student vibes are definitely in the air for me. So I wanted to talk to you about books that I have in my possession in Polish, which are very useful for folk magic related studies, folklore studies. But, these are specifically books that are very rare, out of print, very old, and very, very precious in my collection. So I wanted to show you my cool books, as a book nerd who loves to, find these very, very rare books. Some of them are easier to get than others, but I just wanted to share them with you to start off this, September autumnal transitory season. And hopefully, if you are a book nerd like me, you will, enjoy some of that. Before I show you all my cool, rare books, I also want to stress here that these are not book recommendations per se. If you can read Polish, if you are in Poland, you might find these helpful if you can find them and get your hands on them, of course, which might not be easy necessarily, but this is not like a list of book recommendations per se. If I were to make such a list of Polish books, we would be sitting here for a few hours probably, because I do have an extensive library of books about Polish folklore, Polish folk magic, Polish culture in general, Polish traditions, which I find very useful in my research and in my practice by extension. This is not a list of books like that. These are just the kind of rare out-of-print books that I have in my collection. So please keep that in mind, okay? If you are coming to this video from my YouTube channel and watching it publicly, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. It does help a great deal with spreading the word about my work out there. So it's really appreciated. Thank you. Let's get to it. Alrighty, so these are actually not going to be in any particular order other than how they stack on a book stack from, the largest ones at the bottom to the smallest ones at the top of the pile. That's it. But what I'm going to do is show you some of these books and very briefly explain what each one of those is about and how it's helpful to me. And that's it. I do realize that most of the people who are watching this probably can't read Polish, so I will not be, nerding out too much about it. The first one is a tiny, tiny book titled Piosenki wiejskie dla ochronek, which could be translated to Rural Songs for Protections by Edmund Bojanowski. And this tiny book is actually filled with treasure. These are what the title says: folk songs, rural songs, and a lot of them, can actually be used in one's folk magic practice, in ritual, in singing to the land, to the spirits that we work with, and so on. Many of these address, certain plants or animals or the ancestors, It's just amazing, honestly. So this is something that I've been very keen to be able to have in my collection, as inspiration for whenever I need like a spoken formula. I do not really use them for singing per se, because I do not know what the original melodies would have been, but still I find it very, very useful in that regard. Piosenki wiejskie dla ochronek. The next two I'm going to show together because they are by the same author. This one is still easier to find than this one. This one I actually was hunting for it for I think 2 years. until I finally found it pop up online and snatched it right away. So these two are about poison plants in Poland specifically. This is more like a, you know, visual guide, I would say, which, you know, describes the plants as well. It's very cool, and this is actually a hardback, like that. And again, this one is relatively easy to find still, although there aren't many copies left. And this one is super rare, honestly. And this one is just titled Poison Plants. This one has a longer title. Rośliny trujące lub szkodliwe dla człowieka z uwzględnieniem ich właściwości leczniczych. So this is poison plants, or plants that are malicious towards humans with their healing properties included, okay? So this has more in-depth information about potentially using these plants in healing practices, right? Which, you know, for me personally, it's quite helpful because I do work with poison plants in my practice. This is not something that everybody does. This is not like a staple part of Polish folk magic. This is just something that I am into, and I always look for sources that are as local to me as possible. So this book is actually the most local that I ever was able to find out there. And there aren't many books about poison plants in Poland in general. So yeah, definitely a great find, both of these. Now this one, it's so expensive if you can find it. It goes for a few hundred złoty at this point. So yeah, it's Drzewo Życia, ludowa wizja świata i człowieka. In translation, this would be The Tree of Life, the folk vision of the world and humans, by Joanna and Ryszard Tomiccy. And this book is very in-depth in terms of like the understanding of the world that was present in Polish folk culture and still is. And they do a very good job actually of not trying to find some ancient pagan roots to everything and trying to kind of synthesize the pagan roots in everything that they write about. I find that they do a really great job of just staying faithful to the folkloric material that they are describing, while still providing a lot of, you know, cultural and sometimes cross-cultural context, but mostly, you know, focusing on that which is local and not trying to reinterpret things outside of the folkloric lens. So this book, honestly, is one of my faves ever. Now, this next one, Chleb w tradycji ludowej, literally translates to bread in folk tradition, by Irena Kubiak and Krzysztof Kubiak. This book literally just speaks about all the folk traditions relating to bread and thus grains by extension, right? So how, what was its folkloric significance, how it was used in magic, what was its place in the daily life of humans, what people believed bread's significance to be, and how it was included in agrarian traditions, seasonal traditions. It's a really beautiful and in-depth book about all about bread, and who doesn't love bread, right? Now this one, Królowa Niebios, legendy o Matce Boskiej, Queen of Heavens, the legends of Our Lady or of Mother Mary, by Marian Gawalewicz. This book is actually, at this point, I think, reprinted, so it's available in a new print out there. I have an old version, and this is all about the, you know, kind of folkloric legends and tales of Our Lady, complete with these beautiful, you know, woodcut kind of illustrations. This is an absolute treasure trove of legends and tales about Mary and how she, you know, was present with the folk, with the common folk, and her stories of dealing with folkloric devils and stuff like that. It's just, again, a treasure trove of lore about Mother Mary. I love this book so much. This next one, I know many people are hunting for it. Trzy zorze dziewicze. The full title is actually Trzy zorze dziewicze wśród zamawiań i zaklęć. So the translation would be the three virgin auroras amongst zamawiania, which is like spoken enchantments and spells by Stanisław Czernik. This book, again, just a few years ago, it was still relatively easy to find, but since then, it's just nowhere to be found. And it speaks again about various lore of, plants, places, planets, some spirits, stuff like that, complete with spoken enchantments and spells in Polish culture. So this is one of those rare, finds that can be really enriching for any Polish folk practitioner, if you can find it. I absolutely love it. Now, this book, Religia Słowian, so the religion of the Slavs by Andrzej Szyjewski, is very hard to find. And again, when you can find it, it's quite expensive. It's a book about, the religion of the Slavs, literally, but his approach to it is quite enlightening, and in the sense that, again, he's not trying to over-interpret some things the way we sometimes see with other researchers of, the kind of pre-Christian Slavic faith and or spiritual beliefs and whatever is left of them. I find that his approach is kind of similar to the book Drzewo Życia, the Tree of Life, that I just mentioned a few books back. Very, very insightful, and I find that it's a must read, especially for people who are more into, the pagan side of things. But again, it's also very helpful and kind of enlightening for folks like myself who don't consider themselves pagan, but still, practice folk spirituality and folk magic. Now this, oh my God, I do have it for some time now, for I think like a year, maybe, or two at this point. Yeah, maybe two. It's so rare, honestly, and you can tell that the state of the book itself is very fragile. So I always try to handle it very delicately. So this is a book titled Katalog Magii Rudolfa, so Rudolph's Catalog of Magic. This is compiled by Edward Karwot, and this book is so helpful, especially for folks like myself who live in Lower Silesia, because he was describing, those folk beliefs and practices of magic here in southern Poland, across Silesia. So, it's just an absolute treasure to be able to have this book and to be able to source, the descriptions of it. There are fragments of it on the internet, but I could never find the whole thing. So when I was able to finally, find it, again, it wasn't cheap, but I snatched it right away, because it's one of those things that folks like myself, who are actual book nerds, very nerdy book nerds, this is like a jewel in my collection for sure. And so is the next one that I'm about to show you. This one is titled Wiedza ludowa o gwiazdach, so the folkloric wisdom of the stars, or the folkloric knowledge of the stars, by Maria Gładyszowa. This is a relatively new acquisition in my collection, although I have been literally hunting for this book, similarly to some of the ones I already showed you, for a few years, Just, I will not disclose how I hunt for books like this, because honestly, selfishly, I want to be able to continue to hunt for the books that are long out of print, that I really want to have in my collection, without somebody doing that before me and snatching some books like that right in front of my nose. So, but yeah, this is really precious. It's about, again, the folkloric beliefs in Poland around stars. And you can see some of the stars that were the most important in Polish folkloric tradition. Again, I spoke about this in some of my material on folk astrology or folk astronomy, and how, you know, the Slavs' beliefs around the stars and the celestial bodies in general are not the same like you will see in the West. So it does not really align with Western astrology. Let me just show you these. At the end, you actually have like maps, and a lot of them that you can, you know, take and open, and it shows you in which like regions some of the stars or like constellations were recognized, where the folklore is actually, you know, was detected or collected. So this is just, yeah. So I have been looking for this for a very long time, because I am very passionate about getting to the core of, you know, our local folk understanding of celestial bodies, instead of just, you know, copy pasting everything from other cultures, which I find is often inaccurate to my folk practice. So this I'm just so excited about, honestly. And again, it's also very fragile, as you can tell. So I have been handling this very delicately. Now this next one, I saw that it also got reprinted just relatively recently. Lecznictwo ludu polskiego. So essentially the folk healing of the Polish folk by Henryk Bigeleisen, if I'm reading the surname correctly. This book is essentially absolutely filled with treasure when it comes to folk healing. And folk healing is very adjacent to folk magic, because back in the day, people would combine oftentimes, you know, methods of folk healing with like plants, so folk herbalism, with spoken enchantments and formulas to heal something. And this book just beautifully shows examples of that and collects all of that. Often also compares it with very similar practices across Europe, which is very helpful as well if you are nerdy and like to understand a broader kind of context. And it also shows where Polish folk practitioners started borrowing from the grimoires across Europe. So this is just honestly just amazing. And it also explains how people believed some illnesses to actually be formed in the body, or where they were coming from. And a lot of the times, as you can guess, they believed that some illnesses would be sent by spirits, or by magical practitioners, or by some very specific life circumstances. So this is an absolute treasure. I know I said the word treasure so many times, but these books, all of them, are literally my treasure. So yeah, of knowledge about folk healing. And the next couple books I'm about to show you are in a similar vein as well. This one, Przewodnik ziołolecznictwa ludowego, which could be translated to a guide of folk herbalism, or healing with herbs specifically, by Eugeniusz Kuźniewski and Janina Augustyn Puziewicz. This is a book about, you know, what it says in the title. You get descriptions of plants and what they are good for in terms of, you know, folk healing practices specifically. So this one goes as the previous one that I just showed you was going more in depth into, you know, the formulas and kind of healing specific like practices that were done, whereas this one describes the plants that would be used. And then it also goes into some specific ailments and which plants would be best for those as well. So yeah, again, very, very helpful. It's kind of on the verge of folk magic and folk healing. This one, similarly, Medycyna ludowa w kulturze wsi Karpat Polskich. This one is very particularly tied to the Polish Carpathian mountains. The full title would be Folk Medicine in the Rural Culture of Polish Carpathians, so by Danuta Tylkowa. And this book similarly goes into folk practices and describes them, how they would be used in healing, the kind of plants that would be used, how some of those illnesses were understood, some procedures that were done in order to cure certain illnesses and so on. Again, very, very insightful. Now, these two I will show together. I actually do have an entire collection of these books. Słownik stereotypów I symboli ludowych. There's many tomes of this. The translation of the title is A Dictionary of Folkloric Stereotypes and Symbols, and they have tomes about, the first kind of 4 tomes are about the cosmos, so the world around us. Then the second beat of tomes, which there's like 8 or I don't know, up to 10, are all about plants. And then they started coming out with another one that's about animal lore. So these are very, very in-depth. These are like encyclopedias. And these 2 tomes specifically are the very first 2 tomes that ever came out in the series in the 90s. And they are long out of print. And I was able to finally snatch them earlier this year. Oh my God, I'm just so happy that I was able to do that. So this first one is all about the earth, the water, and the underground. And you get, information about various types of waters, various places in the earth, and also, places like swamps and stuff like that, underground caves. Love it. And then the second one in the series that I have is about the sky, celestial lights, fire, and stones or rocks specifically. And again, it goes in depth into some of that stuff, also including the stars, because it's about covering the heavens, right? So yeah, just love that I'm able to have this, It's, again, such a treasure trove of lore and old knowledge. Now, this next one is Procesy o czary w Polsce w wiekach XV-XVIII. So the witch trials in Poland between the 15th and 18th centuries by Małgorzata Pilaszek. This is one of many books that I have about the Polish witch trials, but this one specifically was the hardest to find. I was again hunting for this book for a few years, and I was finally able to get it earlier this summer, actually. So this is just, covering the Polish witch trials. And I try to collect all the books that I know of, their existence about Polish witch trials, because it's kind of like my fixation, I guess, topic that I really love researching. So I'm really glad that I was able to find this one. I will say straight away, I wasn't able to read this one yet. I just checked out fragments, but I'm so glad I have it in my collection. Almost lastly, this is Zielnik Czarodziejski, to jest zbiór przesądów o roślinach. In translation, this would be like a magical book of herbs, which is a collection of superstition about plants by Józef Rostafiński. This is originally from 1893. This is, of course, a modern print, but I was seeing that it's slowly going out of print or is already out of print, so it's becoming harder to find. And this is, again, exactly what it says on the cover. So it covers various plants and what they were used for in magic specifically, or the kind of superstition around these plants, as well as some, again, illnesses and how they could be cured in with the use of plants in a magical sense more than a folk healing sense, if that makes sense. So yeah, again, something that's very, very helpful for a folk magic practice. And this last book, it's the last because it's the largest. This is Wiejskie Zamawiania, so Rural Enchantments by Krzysztof Winicjusz-Jezierski. And despite the title, this is not exactly what it says on the cover, actually. These are more like poetry, you could say. But similarly to the first tiny book that I showed you with the folk songs for protections, these I found very inspiring for using, because they are concerned with the folkloric landscape, with closeness to the land, with rural traditions and the rural kind of perception of the world, these poems, right? I find them very inspiring for writing my own, you know, spoken formulas and stuff like that. So I really love books like this for inspiration in, you know, charms and spells and addressing the world around me or the spirits that I work with. And that's it. So these were all the rare books that at least I'm aware of at this time that are actually rare, out of print, hard to find. I'm sure that, you know, by the time that I collected all the books that I collected, maybe some more of them are hard to find, but I may be unaware of it because at the time of me getting them, they were easy to get. So yeah, I don't know if this is the complete collection of my rare out of print kind of, you know, treasures and gems in my book collection, but these are all that I'm aware of at this time, if that makes sense. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this. Do let me know what you think about them, if any of those seemed particularly interesting to you, if perhaps you have any rare books in your collection. Do let me know. I'm always, you know, curious to nerd out about books. And also, lastly, do let me know if you would like me to re-record some book recommendations. These would be, you know, books in English, not necessarily in Polish, about specific topics, maybe relating to the things that I normally talk about. If you would like me to record some book recommendations, let me know in the comments below. I would be happy to record that for you, because again, September is for me a nerdy month where I really like to get myself into the groove of, you know, being around books, reading books, studying, finding new study projects to immerse myself in and all that sort of jazz. So anyway, thank you so much for watching and hopefully see you around soon. Bye.